Welcome back to the DDI Podcast, where our mission is simple. We're here to demystify the misconceptions surrounding the digital infrastructure sector. I'm Mark Eales, the Vice President for Schneider Electric's Secure Power Division in the UK and Ireland, and today I'm delighted to welcome Madison Clements, a business management student at Middlesex University who decided at the age of 18 that the data center industry was her calling in life. Okay, Madison, so tell us, what made you think data centers was a good industry? What made you think, yeah, that looks quite attractive to me?
If you would have asked me anywhere between 15, 16, or 17, where I'm going, where I'm headed, I would have said probably banking, finance, private equity, anything other than a technical background of a career. And then all of a sudden, I was open to the world of data centers and I fell in love with it. Never in my life did I think that I was going to be a computer person or want to be a computer person, but data centers just provide so much more than just computers. I mean, the whole entire world runs off of it. And I think that that is what really caught my attention. And then the further and further I got into it, it's the sustainability that's there. It's the DEI that's there. It's the initiatives that everybody's taking for this industry that just made me absolutely fall in love with it.
Amazing. And what made you, what was the tipping point then? What did you see? I'm just trying to think from the perspective of the new you in 1 or 2 years' time, or 1 or 2 years younger. What was the tipping point? What made you think?
It was
I'm interested.
Global Congress in Antibes in 2022. I had gone with my stepfather, who's a part of the industry, and I fell in love with it. I was sitting in all of the panels. I was listening to all the questions. And the one thought I had towards the end of it is, where's all the young people? And then that's when I started to realize that there is maybe an avenue that I could take here, a voice that could be heard from me. And that was it. That was the tipping point. And from there, it just devolved.
It's full on now, though, isn't it? And from your perspective, you know, I'm really interested in this piece. How well do you think we're doing as an industry to kind of educate everyone on what this industry does and how it does it?
You know, I think the education part is a rough one because you can't teach a baby algebra. And if you start to try to expand the industry to other people who have no idea what's going on, the terminology has to be very specific to what they know and what they can associate with. And I think as an industry, we struggle to do that, and we start to throw out massive terms that we know and we understand and we can recite in our sleeps, but it's not an industry-wide, it's not a profession-wide term. And I think that that's where we fail as an industry. And I think that's also where we lose the perspective of Gen Z, is because they're hearing all these terms that they have no clue what it means. And they can't relate to it. It's not something personal that they find. And it just over their head in one ear, out the other, and they just forget about it. So as an industry, I think there is more to be done. There's more identifying that can be done from the industry to the younger generations.
Let me just pick up on the point you made about Gen Z. Have you got a practical example of where something could kind of really resonate with a Gen Z person, that you've seen language that's been, I think you used the terminology, go over someone's head, versus Gen Z kind of going, actually, yeah, that does resonate with me. Have you got a practical example that maybe our listeners could?
So I think the best example is cloud and web services. Off the bat, you very rarely would know what it is if you weren't in the industry. But once you start like picking apart the little pieces of it and you start to realize that it is the apps that you use and it is your data storage and your pictures go to the cloud and your videos go to the cloud, that is something that Gen Z can relate to because, I mean, we're always on our phones chronically taking pictures of everything. So that's an avenue that can be taken and a terminology that can be used. Oh, do you want to know what cloud service is? It's where your pictures go. It's where your videos go.
Interesting. And you're kind of hitting on the point here, which leads us into the next part of the questioning, which is really interesting for me, is how do you perceive we should better, I guess, link in to the next wave of talent that come into our industry? What's the best way we could do that?
You know, I've seen a lot of people saying that it's social media, and to an extent, a valid social media presence is super important for my generation, but I do think it's about literally being in front of their faces. So at their schools, at events that you can get into, on the street if you have to, at concerts. Schneider did the Tottenham thing. They helped Tottenham Hotspurs do their first net zero game. That's a great example. That is something that Gen Z is at, almost guaranteed. So it is about being in front of their face as much as possible, whether it's online, whether it's in person, at uni, at jobs, at a restaurant if you have to. But it's just being there at all possible costs.
So I'm picking this up now. So we need to think more broadly about the medium in which we're going out to market and what we're promoting as the good things that we're doing as part of the industry, hey? But do you think we're just sitting here hoping that people will come to us then? Is that what we're really doing? Is that how it feels?
It does a little bit feel like that. I've given this example so many times before, but the career fair that I've had at my university this past year, not a single data center was there. I mean, you had some big names like Deloitte and KPMG who obviously use data centers, but they're not there marketing their data centers or the companies that they use. They're marketing their own services, but there was no data centers there. And it's kind of funny because you guys keep talking about recruiting young talent and getting more people in and really completing that cycle in a career, but you're not there. You're not there recruiting at one of the prime times when you have hundreds of kids walking around with their resumes in hand being like, oh, I need an internship, or oh, I need a job. And that is just astonishing to me, but you guys aren't doing a good job. It doesn't seem like you want us. The way that I have seen it, and it's gotten less and less over the few years, but it is a very closed-doored industry as it seems. You know, they don't open the door super easily to newcomers, and I think that is a huge fallacy within the industry.
Yeah, I think we all agree. To be honest. I've spoken to a few senior leaders in our industry, and we all have the same passion, which is to be attractive to new talent. Now, whether that's early talent or maybe people from veterans or whatever it is, I think we need to do more. And I think we just need to think and tweak our thinking around the PR of the industry and making it really visible for others to see that actually there is a pathway into this industry, which brings me on brilliantly onto the next question, I think. Let's talk about pathways, to be honest, because I had one pathway, apprenticeship in and did one route. Others have done, prior work. Others have come from different industries. Others have come from like graduate schemes, etc. I guess I know the answer to this and what you're about to say, but I'd also be interested in your perspective in terms of how we offering enough in the way of educational pathways.
I don't think so. Not at all. And this is me speaking for both apprentice and just university pathways as well. There just needs to be more. I mean, I think the apprentice pathway is incredible. And if I had it available to me in the United States when I was, coming of age, it would have been the pathway that I chose rather than university. But I do think there's not enough. I mean, even if you go online right now, I was online 2 days ago looking up graduate schemes for data centers, just trying to see what I could find. I've got one more year, 18 months, and then it really kicks off for me. Mm-hmm. Very little, very, very little came up. And what did come up was all engineering, computer, IT, which is great, completely vital. But what happens to your management or your communications or your business or your sales and so on? But no, there's definitely not enough educational pathways.
That's really interesting, the point you're making here, because you're somebody who wants to get into the industry. And if you can't visualize or see that pathway and you want to get to it, well, it's going to be 10 times as bad for us wanting to encourage or advocate for our industry to people who don't know anything about it. So I take your point, and I think I'm picking up some good learning traits here. Gen Z, you spoke about them. They're the future, right? This just says let's be right, this is how life works. We've got the next generation coming through. But from your perspective, through the conversations you have with your peers, are we listening? Can you sense that we're listening? Can you sense there's been a change? Do you see things moving? So we are listening to Gen Z, or are we just sweeping it under the carpet?
So in the past year or so, I have seen a dramatic shift from my perspective, at least. As we see more of the baby boomer generation move to retirement, we do see a generation that steps in and is more willing to listen. And I think that that's fantastic. But I mean, we have companies that really prioritize sustainability and flexible working environments and DEI and mental health and everything. And I do think we are getting to a point where we're not only listening to Gen Z, but just listening to everybody as a whole. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's super important, because while Gen Z does have some very some very strong opinions on what a workplace should be, it is the fact of listening to everybody that comes through your work environment, regardless of the generation. But we are seeing that people are listening to us more and taking kind of our thoughts and feelings and opinions into account.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say this because, I've been thinking about, are we giving the right message out to the market? Clearly, you're telling me we're not. So I think you're right. I don't think what we're saying is at the right target audience. I think we're probably pushing a message out that attracts probably the same demographic that we've had for the last 25 years. So there's definitely more work to be done on that. And I think individuals like yourself who are passionate about changing this can help us forge the future. And I think, it's really important to state that this industry gives people an opportunity to make the change that they want to see. So I think that's really important to think about. But I guess the follow-on question to this is, do you think we're still pushing out a narrative, or do you think you mentioned we're listening better, so that's a good sign, or do you still feel there's an element of just a narrative going out about digital infrastructure and data centers generally?
A little bit. Obviously, you've mentioned multiple times authenticity, and sometimes you do come across companies who are pushing out this narrative, and it does seem very unauthentic. Like, you don't want us there. You just kind of want to cycle us through, work us hard for 2 to 5 years, and then on to the next. And that's a problem, because it is, you see one good data center company who does care about you and does want you here,
Yeah.
and then you see all the rest who just want to cycle you through and then feed you out to the rest. And that's pushing back on all the good work that we are doing and have done. It's hit or miss. I think it depends really heavily on the company that you choose to go and work for. But it would be nice as an industry whole if we could all just be genuine, authentically okay with recruiting younger generations and just embracing change in general.
That's interesting what you're saying. And maybe a little bit of guidance here for other individuals who may be same age demographic as yourself. What kind of things are you looking for when you said 18 months down the line, time's moving on. What are you looking for? What's really important to you when you're looking at a company?
So the company's morals and values, I think, are super important to me. Sustainability is great. I love it. DEI is also another big one for me. As well as like a flexible working environment. Unfortunately, for a lot of companies, COVID showed us that we can all work from home and still be just as efficient. And that is something that Gen Z has taken away from that experience with that lockdown, is that we can work from home and still get work done. So they do expect somewhat of a hybrid working environment. And to an extent, I do myself, or at least the flexibility to be able to be home when needed and be in the office when requested. Money is not a big thing for me, to be honest with you. And I think a lot of Gen Z has stepped away from the idea of a high salary, and they'd rather just enjoy what they do for life. And rather than being paid high, they just rather would go to work and enjoy a life and enjoy their day. And again, I agree with that statement. And money's not a high priority for me. Money's great. It would be nice to make good money while doing what I love, but I'd rather do what I love than sell my soul for money. So.
Wow. Well, let's just test this then, because I'm going to put myself on the spot, I think, a little bit here. So these are the things that you like and you're looking for. How at Schneider Electric, how are we performing, I should say, at Schneider Electric on this? If you looked on our web today, being really pragmatic and honest about this, are we hitting the mark on a number of these areas?
So I will say that the only reason I heard about your graduate route was from a LinkedIn post that you put. So it didn't come up on like a Google search or a LinkedIn search or Indeed or whatever. It didn't come up that way. It came up through a post from you, which then obviously I clicked on to learn further about. And when I put in, sales, business, I think I put marketing as well, there was no open positions for graduates. Now, I don't know if that was based on the time that I did it or whatever it was, but there was no open positions. So I do think in that regards, you guys are kind of dropping the ball a little bit. Even if you didn't have any open positions, it would be like, oh, okay, we'll check back at this date or submit your application by this date, or this is what you would need to be considered. That would have been nice, I think, especially. And then another thing is the marketing of it all. You need to overly push it, like shove it in our faces. Go to career fairs, go post it on Instagram every 2 days or every 2 minutes or whatever works. Just shove it in our faces, because I think the only way the graduate scheme works is if you actually have applications for the graduate scheme.
That helps.
Otherwise, it's just an empty program. But I do, after speaking to a couple of the people on your graduate schemes, they're incredibly happy with it. They love it. They think they've learned so much from it. And I do think that in that regard, as to the material that you're learning on the graduate scheme, I think that it's top tier. It's
Great.
just the communication and the marketing of it as well.
I'm really picking this up, actually, and it's I think I'm learning more and more from you as this conversation moves ahead, which is actually the do bit, or the how we do this seems to be, we're probably hitting the mark or somewhere close, but maybe before that, our PR and our comms is probably the area that needs most attention.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can help us change that in the future. Who knows? But do you feel Schneider Electric is quite a big organisation? I mean, globally, huge reach, 140,000 people. Do you think it's clear who we are and what we stand for when you've done your research on our company? Is it clear? Can you sense the company you'd be walking into? Maybe I ask you from a culture perspective, or addressing your points earlier on DE&I and sustainability. Do you feel it's clear? Can you look at it and go, yeah, actually, that does resonate with me because it answers these questions?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you just simply search up Schneider Electric, even the marketing of the front page, it is clear. You guys are a company that cares and stuff. And the further you get down the rabbit hole into Schneider Electric, you do start to see people who have worked for the company or worked with the company who have glowing reviews of the company. So I do think that the message and the initiative that you guys are trying to portray is very clear to the younger generations.
That's good. But maybe what I'm picking up from you, we could be a bit more concise and clear, and the way that we go to market, so to speak, with it, we probably just need to tweak and think a little bit more broadly about. And if you were sitting on an exco with us, kind of giving your feedback and we had PR and we had comms in the room as well, and marketing, what were the three things you'd think we should, or two or three things that you think we should do different stroke better?
I think, going to schools is a big thing. Even if you just, and I think the best way to do it is send your apprentices, send your graduates, don't send your executives. I mean, I'm not really going to get along with somebody who's 20, 30 years older than me. I'm going to more get along and more identify with somebody who's my age and is walking the same path that I'm walking with. So I think from a PR standpoint, do go to schools, do stand there and be like, this is what we do. And as simple as terms, don't fluff it up, don't fluff it down, just straight baseline. This is what we do. This is how we're going to do it. You're going to work hard. You're going to be tired by the end of it, but you're going to have a good time. And I think, another social media thing, outreach is a big thing, but it is about using those specific terms that do target the younger generations, and that comes through filters and all the algorithms that come along with every social media output you have.
Yeah, I think language appears to be a really important thing. You mentioned it, I think, right at the start. So we probably don't get it right all the time. So I think we probably need to think more broadly about how we use language to encourage people, both to our website and our social media platforms as well. Now, $1 million question. You've got an opportunity here. So you've got all these decision makers sat in a room. What's the one question you're going to ask them?
What about Gen Z scares you the most? What about Gen Z, like recruiting-wise, scares you? Is it because we come with strong opinions? Is it because we seem to want to cause anarchy everywhere we go? What is it? Are you afraid of the change? Do you not want the industry to change? I think that is a big thing, because I have come across people who do seem to be quite afraid of my generation and what it brings. And I think, unfortunately, like you said, the cycle of life is a new generation comes along, takes the place, and then it just keeps going on and on until the end of time, I guess. So I think, my question would be, what about Gen Z scares you the most?
It's really interesting, this. We were having a conversation with a whole bunch of grads yesterday, actually. I think there was 20 grads in our Leeds facility, and one of our senior leaders said to the grads, look, don't get caught up in generational discussions. Get caught up in, am I going to be the best person I can be for any given role in this organisation, and prove all these things wrong, all these myths about Gen Z, demanding, want to sit in the middle of Hawaii and do their work there. Really take these things off the table and prove that actually it's just a generation who wants to get stuff done. Just prove it.
Yeah.
And maybe you subscribe to that a little bit as well?
I do, yeah. I do think, every generation at some point or another has been labeled chaos. When you were younger, I'm sure the older generation said, you guys are bringing chaos and too much change. It's the circle of life. We're all going through it.
It really is. It really is the circle of life. I like that. Is there any other points that you think, just not a question necessarily, but if you stood on a podium looking out at the whole industry, what would be the one thing that you would say, let's change this?
Oh. I mean, I feel like the obvious answer here is like obviously any sustainability regarding or related issues, but I do think right now my biggest voice in the industry is about the talent recruitment. I mean, let's change it. Why not let new people come in? Why are we looking for skills that they've already acquired? Why not opening up the pathways to teach them? I mean, the thing is if you want somebody to come take over your company, the best way to do it is to teach them yourself. Then they're going to take it over just exactly how you like it, and then you won't be upset with the outcomes.
I love this. So open up the pathways.
Yeah.
That's our go-to message.
Doors. Open the gates.
Here we go. So get ready, people. The gates are going to be open. Madison said it here first. Well, Madison, thank you for joining me today. It's been a great discussion.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you.